cross comes in. White with the header. 1-0 England.
And here comes Whitehead. It's gold for Great Britain.
Welcome to Track and Ball podcast. I'm Richard Whitehead.
And I'm Ellen White.
Today our guest, somebody that I've known for a very long time, but some of the things that she'll be telling me as a professional athlete, I've never heard before, and I'm sure it would enrich your life as well.
The guests we've got lined up on our podcast are incredible, and today's guest is Rebecca Adlington, and we're super excited to talk to her all about what it's like to be a woman in sport, and also hear not just about being an athlete, but who is Rebecca Adlington, the person behind the athlete. She talks about her trolling online. She's really open and honest, refreshing conversation. Also about menstrual cycle. What's it like to be an athlete and having to deal with that at the same time? Exactly. What is that? And that's all we'll be discussing. And I think it's really incredible to hear about her legacy as well. She wants to be involved in getting as many kids as possible swimming, and it's an incredible life skill. So join us, and we can't wait for you to hear about all about Rebecca Adlington. Hi, Becky. So, Becky, thank you so much for coming and joining us. This is our first ever podcast, so thank you so much for joining both me and Richard. I hope I don't sound too cheesy when I say this, but you're a huge inspiration to me. What you've achieved, the ultimate honor of winning 4 Olympic medals is just amazing. But you went on I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here. Like that's it for me.
That's a big tick.
That's a big tick for me.
Is it in Wales or somewhere?
Yeah, it's so random, isn't it?
Imagine being on it this year.
Oh no,
Australia. Where
it doesn't compare.
Wales is beautiful, but
is there any good hotels in Wales? You know,
there's gotta be. Versace, but still.
Right, well, I'll come back to I'm a Celebrity, I promise. So to kick it off, we've all experienced both positive and negative comments online. You know, you've spoken out about the abuse you've received. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that looked like for you in terms of the trolling that you faced, and also, how you came out the other side as well?
Yeah, it's one of those that I sound really old when I say it, but 12 years ago, social media wasn't quite what it is now, which sounds really weird. But I didn't have Instagram at the time; it was mainly Twitter. And I think we all, if you whatever competition that you've just done really well at, you get so many messages, don't you? And they're all praise and they're all amazing and well done and congratulations. And then my followers starting to increase, then all of a sudden it was like this golden rule that you got to so many followers, and then boom, the abuse hits. It kind of draws you into this false sense of security that you're like, oh, this is good, and then all of a sudden it's like bang, hits you. And for me, it was just one of those to start with where it was all based on my appearance, and I was just kind of like, at first, I felt that it was very personal, and secondly, I was like, what the hell has this got to do with my swimming? It's kind of like when you're a sports person, you just go, what difference does it make what we look like? Or we're not trying to be models or anything else. As long as I get through the water as fast as I possibly can, what difference does it make? And that's just kind of what I didn't understand. And obviously, being a swimmer, everything was related to a dolphin, whale, shark. Very it's like, guys, what was something a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then I think it's just one of those as well that then people start talking about you on different shows. And for me, a big lift off was when Frankie Boyle made a comment on, I think it was Mock the Week or so, it's one of those shows. And he made it about loads of different people. It wasn't just me that he picked on, it was everyone. And he simply made the comment that I looked like I'm looking into the back of the spoon or whatever it was. And then all of a sudden, I think once that sort of stuff starts to happen as well, it's kind of like, oh, well, if he can, everyone can. So it kind of jumps on this bandwagon.
And how did that make you feel, Bex, at that time? How did that?
To be fair, it was one of those, I've never met him. It was nothing personal. I've never made it personal. For me, I've never met him. Don't know. Wasn't a massive fan of his to start with, but only because I'm really niche with my comedy. I really like things that are like stories and everyday and really relatable stuff. That's my sort of comedy. I just like that. So I hadn't watched it at the time. It was only when there was so many complaints put in that it really kind of got brought to life through the media. So I wasn't bothered about him saying it. He's welcome to his opinion. Like, I don't have any at all with him. Go for it. It was just a case of, I think, once somebody else does that's in the public eye, it almost gives everyone that entitlement that if he can, I can. And then that's when it was just one after the other, of just a constant stream of just trolling.
And do you think, because myself and Ellen have had those moments as well, obviously myself with the Paralympic golds and Ellen with a golden boot and those moments at the World Cup, is there any advice that you would give to like young athletes that's coming into the sport now around that? Because I think that's really important. Like there'll be youngsters that are watching today going, yes, that's something that I'm really scared about, not just for myself, but also for my family, and how are they going to react?
Yeah, and I think that's really different. I think it's harder. You probably guys have found it the same. It's harder for your loved ones and family than it almost is for you, because you just block, ignore. You do whatever you guys do, but I block and just ignore, and I just carry on with my day. Whereas when you start to tell your loved ones or people that you care about, they get so angry and so hurt. I got to the point where I just was like, I'm not telling anyone anymore. And it was just easier just to not say anything. But it does really upset your family and friends, of course it does. Yeah. But I think my advice is just to find your way with it. And I think for me, blocking, but I see on Twitter people coming back with so many amazing, funny comments that are just hilarious. And they, for me, they crack me up. I'm not clever or witty enough to come up with those. So I to block and ignore, and it's whatever works for you. So blocking, I don't want to give them the attention. I just think I'm just going to block and ignore you. And I think as well, I think athletes were very like ruthless, critical people anyway. We're very tough on ourselves, but I think when it comes to that sort of outside stuff, we can bat it off very well. Yes, we're all human at times, but I feel like athletes we're so focused on performance, and you're so focused on, well, as long as my performance is good. I think if any of us got a message like kind of saying, oh, you could have done that kick better, or you could have done that, you'd be like, yeah, fair enough, I probably could.
That's so true.
It's like, oh gosh, you're ugly and you're fat and all this sort of stuff. You're like, oh,
it's ridiculous.
It's so extreme to you, because I think as well, we're all really nice people. Like that, I'm not trying to be big-headed there, but we're all nice, normal people. And actually, we wouldn't dream of sending that to somebody else ever. So we understand it. So a lot of my advice to kind of younger people is don't try to understand it, because you won't. If you're a good person, you won't understand. I've tried to put myself in their shoes. I've tried to think, oh, well, I feel sorry for them. You try to go down that path, and I just think, don't bother, because you'll never understand why they do it, because you're just never going to be like that.
100%. I think it's just trying to almost like rise above it, isn't it, really? And, you know, I've experienced it at the World Cup in 2019. I literally just came off social media. I just thought, I just don't want it to have a detrimental effect on my performance. And I think that, like you said, the performance was my main priority. Yeah. But those comments can really just make you just feel horrendous, like your mental health, and just performances just make you feel awful. And same with like family. I've had family where they're almost like searching out the comments, and I'm just like, I don't want to hear it. Like, please, like, it doesn't matter to me, but it does really affect them. And that's what I found really challenging with my family.
Yeah. And I think when you've got a difference to other people as well, when you've got a visual difference, like you say, if somebody picks up on something, or in my case with a disability, then they can target that. And I think initially you kind of do laugh it off, but in later life, I think you do reflect on some of those messaging and those comments. Like, obviously, as I go out with my friends and they say, oh, are you getting legless tonight, Rich? And I'm going, well, as a joke, it's okay, maybe a little bit funny, but really it's not really that appropriate. So sometimes I do actually hurt those comments, and that's why some of the trolling that people do, those keyboard warriors, really is a dark side of sport that some of the younger athletes don't understand how to manage appropriately.
No, and I think you don't, because at the end of the day, not any of us get into our sport for getting social media followers. That's not why we do it.
No.
It's up to you. And I feel really sad that you kind of felt like you had to come off, because I just feel like why should we? My point has always been, why should I come off? Why should I be bullied so much that I should give up on talking to that 14-year-old that messages me going, I've got a competition this weekend, will you wish me good luck? And I kind of like, there's so many lovely people in the world, and lovely people on social media. And I'm sure you guys experience the lovely side as well. And I don't want to stop that just for those that want to be jealous or nasty or hurtful or anything else. And I kind of don't want them to win. I'm kind of like, I'm so competitive that I'm like, I'm not going to let you win. I'm not going to do it.
And you retired at the age of 23. Was that a circumstance because of some of those things that you were experiencing at that time, or was that a different reason?
No, that was just, it's a young sport. It's like gymnastics. It's such a young sport. And I think for me, I'd achieved everything. Nothing was going to get better than a home Olympics. I was never going to get greater than that moment. So it was kind of like, do I carry on for 4 years and just kind of hurt myself a lot more? My body was starting to, like, you know, your body just can't cope so much as it gets older. You need a lot more rest and recovery and everything else. And I just thought, I just wanted to do other things. I wanted to set up my own swim. There was other passions that I started to have. And I think, you know, when that love has kind of, you would always love your sport, don't get me wrong, and we all love our sport. You'll always be a fan of your sport, whether you're competing or not. But I think for me, I was like, I want to go there and not to training. So that's a big sign for me. I was like, oh no, it's time to go.
So like that part of your kind of life, like finished in terms of your swimming aspect and competing, and then you kind of went into working with like Slazenger and designing and creating your own kind of swimwear. Is that something that you want to kind of continue? Is that something you want to delve more into?
I think it's one of those that no matter what sport you do, it's like you'll probably always want your own football boots. And you know what I mean? Like, you'll always...
I think so, would, yeah.
Like, we only have a costume to put our personality in. That is it.
Yeah.
Like, I see the athletics guys, and you watch, they've got their chains on, their hair. Like, you see all sorts of things when you're looking at the girls in the athletics arena, and they've like their makeup, the nails, their everything. We can't do any of that. Nail polish comes off in the water. We can't wear any makeup. We've got wet hair. We've got nothing. So I think the only way we can experience a bit of personality or a bit of whatever is through your swimsuit and what you wear, and obviously the technology and everything else. But I think that's the nice thing that comes when you do achieve a bit of something, that you have them opportunities to do. And I'm extremely, extremely lucky for the things that I've been able to do after sport, that I definitely don't take for granted, that I've just been like, oh my God, it's been amazing to have that opportunity. And I appreciate that. I wouldn't have otherwise, because I'm just a girl from Mansfield. So I'm very pleased that I have.
And do you think as part of your role, it's also really important to invest that knowledge back into something like the attire that you actually do wear in the pool? I feel it's really important. What do you feel about that?
I think that it's one of those that the technology with swimming, like with what we wear and everything else, like is so technical, and ours has been really reduced. Whether you guys can remember in the sport, we had like the super shiny suit era that like went crazy and went nuts. So we're really strict back now. We're really like 100% textile. There's quite a lot of rules and regulations over that sort of stuff now. We can only go to the knee and all that sort of stuff. So there is a lot of rules and everything now. But I think you always want to give back to your sport in whatever capacity. Like, I've had conversations with British women where I'm like, if anyone ever wants to get in contact with me, just do, like, no matter how big or small, you just want to give back to your sport because you love and you live and breathe it for years, and you kind of feel like, I still love swimming, don't get me wrong. I still go for a swim, and I still obviously do the commentary when it comes to swimming, but you're still such a big fan for it. You've still got this huge passion. You've still got this outlet that you want to get rid of, that you're just like, anything I can do to promote swimming or help that world of swimming, that you just want to do. And I think we all feel like that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done what we've done at such a high level.
Yeah, 100%. And I've got a funny story that Rich has actually told me about. One of his sprint suits was so tight they had to wear it so close to his event because it was squishing his area. And I was just wondering, like, did you ever, when you were competing, did you ever wear something that was so uncomfortable that you didn't feel comfortable in? Like, was it all absolutely fine and, you know, you got to choose it?
I can't believe you brought that up. It's terrible.
Sorry about that, Rich.
I think swimming's probably even worse. I mean, we've seen it all in swimming. Like, you only have to bend down on the block and your swimsuit can rip at the back. And it happens quite a lot, that there's been a lot of incidents. But the swimsuits, you basically have to fit them 2 sizes too small. And they're so... I've once dived in and had my boobs out. Quickly. And I was like,
brilliant.
The camera wasn't underneath my lane. There's only one camera that's on the bottom of the pool, and it wasn't my lane. So I was like, whoa.
One difficulty that I have is, you put it on really tight, and then I'm really hydrated, and then I want a wee or a poo. Yeah. So trying to get it back off. How do you cope with that? Because I have to go for number 2 before I go out onto the track. What about yourself?
No, same. We always have to do that as well. It's such an effort, isn't it? And you've just got to embrace it. You get to the point for swimmers, I don't know what your material is, but our knuckles are like red, raw, blistered from just putting our suit on and off. Getting it on. So you'll always see swimmers with like red knuckles just from getting the suit on and off. But
I can't have it that tight.
I have definitely no skill just to have a little squat down and a little pee next to the ball. Luckily, I haven't, because I always need the number 2 like you, Rich. So I couldn't do that.
Oh, wow. I feel like my experience is not quite the same. We just had massive baggy shirts. I didn't have to like squeeze myself into anything. So I don't feel like my experience is quite that scary, to be honest. But, I feel really lucky, actually, that we've been like given like bespoke kind of women's kits now. So like, the funding, the exposure now has just been so amazing that, we'll be able to have kind of bespoke kits that are kind of fitted to women. So I think that's amazing that the growth of kind of women's footballers or women's sport has definitely grown.
Yeah, but the thing is what's mad for a lot of people, because they would have gone, surely that's the given. You get that women's uniform in any other kind of most other walks of life. It's a man and woman's uniform, whereas that's what's mad, is the fact that you're now saying it in a way that should be an essential. It's now that you're going, oh, well, it's so lucky that we've got that. That should have always been.
I feel like it's always me that I'll walk in and be like, oh my God. Like, I'm just, I think that's just the way I've been kind of women's football's kind of grown. But yeah, you are right. I'm always just like, I'm so lucky, woo, like. But yeah, you are right. We should have probably had it from the beginning, but at least, well, hopefully it will continue.
I'm glad we didn't have to deal with men's swimsuits. That's
and I know you obviously wear different training attire for like competitions and training, but me and Ellen were talking about like our favourite training sessions that we like within our sports, and mine's changed from obviously marathon to on the track. And at the moment, my favourite track sessions 8 250s, which is like 250 metres. Put your foot down. You've got 4 minutes to do one, and then you recover, and then you go back and do it again. My coach is on a bike and literally smashing me, and I can't move. Never mind, breathe after. So, Ellen, what's your favourite session?
That sounded really easy, by the way. That just sounded like a walk in the park.
I'm 44, so it has to be easy.
Did you say that was your favourite one as well? No.
Yes, favourite.
Okay.
I love it.
That's not my favourite. Mine's just basically playing football. So 5-a-side competition, no fitness, just running, having fun. That's my favourite. We don't ever get to do that really at training. So that's probably my favourite one. What was your kind of favourite session, Becky?
I'm a distance swimmer, so I wouldn't class them any as my favourite. I'm the opposite of Rich. And you experienced this probably when you were doing the marathon, that you literally, as any sort of distance swimmer, you have minimal rest. It was always, I was the first in, last out the pool. I literally had time probably just to take a sip of water and carry on again. I got max 5-10 seconds rest. That was it before going again. So yeah, it didn't quite happen, but I definitely don't miss them days of doing like 10 400s and all that sort of stuff in the pool. It was just like, definitely don't miss those. Now I go for a swim and I do 2,000 meters max. I'm like, oh, that was really nice. That was really nice.
Just leisurely.
Yeah.
So was there ever like a situation or a scenario that ever like affected your training that was kind of like out of your control?
I think there's a lot. I mean, we all experience illness, injury, things like that. For me, there was a period when I was younger before Beijing. I had glandular fever and post-viral fatigue, and my sister had encephalitis, which is the brain virus. And my sister was in hospital. She was in intensive care, and that was just the period in my life that we were just dealing with family illness. And my sister's was way bigger than mine. I wasn't in hospital or anything else. But I think when things like that takes over, when life takes over, it puts everything into perspective. And I still went swimming, don't get me wrong, but it was one of those that I went to the back of the lane. I just took it easy, constantly checked my heart rate, never went over like 140 beats, just totally sticks, just really, really slow, really steady swimming. And just like you said earlier, just got back to the basics of swimming. Just worked on technique and things like that. But it's very frustrating. I don't know how you find being ill or injured, but oh my gosh, I used to hate it. I used to get so frustrated, and I'd always go back too soon, then always put myself back a week, so I'd come back too soon instead of resting for a couple more days. And I think every athlete's the same, aren't you? You just miss it so much, and you feel so much guilt. I used to feel an amount of guilt for not going, even though I wasn't sat at home going, oh, I'm just not going to turn up. I was genuinely ill or injured, but you just feel this immense amount of guilt, and that you should be there, and that your competitors are there and you're missing out, and that you're putting yourself back. And I think you just go around on this mental loop, don't you? That's just not healthy.
I feel like that is such like, you know, when you're competing at the top level, I feel like that kind of thing is like ingrained in us, that we're always thinking, what is our competitor doing? Oh my God, I feel so guilty. Why am I not doing that? Maybe I'm not eating the right thing. Why am I not training? But I'm injured, but I need to be doing that. But I'm always, when I'm injured, I'm trying to find the tiniest little thing that I can do. But then, like you say, then I'm back again for a week and I'm like, oh, why did I do it? Like, it's just so frustrating. In terms of like when you were competing, did you ever kind of discuss or ever talk about like the menstrual cycle, or was that like a taboo subject, as it were?
It was one of those that when I was really young, it was one of those that I'm from a very, even though it's a very mixed sport, don't get me wrong, men and women are very, very equal. It's a male dominant coaching environment. We had one female team manager, the rest were all male. And I can remember we went out to Australia and we did a competition, and I swam absolutely rubbish, I will openly say. It was from jet lag. We had just competed back home. We got on a flight, then literally landed there. The next 2 days later, when you're dealing with jet lag, and I don't know if you guys experience when you go to Australia and the jet lag hits you hard, and then started competing again. I raced awful, and I had the head coach, who was a male at the time, send the female team manager to my room, knocked on my door and went, have you swam bad because you've started your period? I was like, no. I was like, oh, you actually kidding me? I was like, for starters, I don't think that equals swimming bad all the time. I think to explain to you about hormones, and you can still swim and you can still do these things. I was like, and I just found it as if you sent somebody to my room to ask me that. And I think it's one of those that, as women, you don't go around flaunting it in front of your male. I had a male coach. I'm not going to go up to him and be like, stop my period! At all. But at the same time, I was very open enough to be like, if I was in an immense amount of pain, just saying, look, I've got really bad stomach cramps today. And he was like, okay, I got it. Like, I didn't need to say any more than that. I didn't need to go into details, but I just communicated it to him. So I found it so disrespectful when then somebody patronized you about it, or somebody questioned you about it. And I was like, I started my period when I was 11. I will openly say that. So I was very young. And this person was 50. They asked me when I was 15. And I was kind of like, I've been dealing with it for 4 years. I think I've got it under control. How I'm dealing with it. And it was just one of those that dealing with that environment, it's just kind of like, come on, guys. Like, it's just ridiculous. We all go through it.
Do you find the advertising campaigns, like the ones at Tampax, like really, really like educational, like get it up there, girls? do you find that help educators males?
You know what? It's so funny because I have actually spoken to a couple of my guy mates that I'm now friends with that aren't from the world of sport. I've said stuff to them and they've gone, well, what have you done? Do you just take that week off swimming? I'm sorry, but if I need to be that spokesperson to educate people, you can on your periods. There is tampons out there. It doesn't go into the water or anything like that people have this perception of. I'm like, you can pretty much still do everything, guys. It's like not one of those, but yeah, it does make me laugh.
I feel educated.
I'm glad you've learned something. I actually saw a really great video that you did in 2016 where you were talking about periods and you mentioned the mouse is out the house. Could you elaborate for everyone?
Those are in the skimpiest little outfit ever, aren't we? Really, like we're not in shorts and t-shirt, we're in this tiny costume, and it is one of those that tampons seem to come with an extremely long string.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
And it's one of those that sometimes in swimming it can pop out of your swimming cosy. And I think the girls are brilliant with it. Girls are straight away going, "Oh, your mouse is out the house. Come on, tuck it in or go to the like, you'll give a heads up to anyone." And like, even if like someone's dropped something poolside, you're like, "Oh, girls," and like we look out for one another. And to be fair, the guys are great. Any male swimmer are absolutely brilliant with it as well. Yeah, they take the mick a little bit, but we take the mick just as bad, like on other stuff. And it's just kind of like you just get to that point. We talk about athletes talk about poos so much. You talk about poos as an athlete so much, and I think that sort of anything like that. I mean, we don't get to wear makeup, so anything to do with like spots or hormones, periods, poo, all that sort of stuff, you just like, yeah, whatever.
If the period is the women's kind of funny topic to talk about, what's the male one?
Well, males always kind of like a lot of the guys would trump on us. That was like,
really?
Yeah.
It's not about getting too excited then in the swimming pool, then, no.
Not so much those tight trunks. It's more a case of ripples in the water, and the guys find it really funny to do that stuff, and yeah, all that sort of stuff. They like to just have a joke about and all that sort of stuff. So no, we can easily just wind them up just as bad.
We will leave period soon, but I did watch a clip from I'm a Celebrity where you had the genius idea of using your tampon to light the campfire.
You know what? I thought they were genuinely going to light the fire for us. I genuinely did. And then when we got in there, not one of us could light a fire. We were like, where's the matches? There's something to help us out here. We must have spent 2 hours trying to light that fire.
Oh wow!
Like throw anything on there, on there. Let's get it going. Come on! I just got to the point where I was like, just get this fire lit. It's pitch black. It's carbon. Just get it going.
Oh my! Can you like talk to us like how that came about? Like you coming on or going on I'm a Celebrity and like your experience of what it was like.
Oh God, it was amazing. When they first contacted me to do it, I was like, oh my God, no way. I'd be awful. Like I was just like really put off. And then I kind of chatted with them a couple more times. They were like, look, it's so much fun. This is what it entails and blah, blah, blah. And I just was like, okay, let's just do it. I didn't fully disclose how scared of snakes I am. That's my advice.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Whatever you say you're really scared of, they'll put you with that. So I just don't like most things. I don't like. And they were like, well, what are you like with snakes? And I was like, I'm not a massive fan, but everything's just the same level of scary. Where in real life, I can't even look at a snake. I put my daughter for any sort of farm or and there's a snake there. I can't even look at it. I'm like, oh, I'm like.
That's smart though. That's smart though, I think.
I just didn't disclose how fully scared I was of that. So that was all right. But I feel like with a lot of the other shows, like I could go out and learn to dance, or I can go out and learn to cook, or you can go out and replicate them. And yes, they wouldn't be anywhere near as amazing, don't get me wrong. But with I'm a Celeb, it's such a unique experience that you're going to be stuck with 11 strangers in this campsite. And it's just, you're doing all these crazy challenges. And it was just the biggest amount of fun ever. And I'd recommend anyone to do it. It's absolutely amazing. And if they asked me to do it again, I'd say yes, hands down.
Even in Wales?
Even while it's so much fun, so much fun.
And what about the Bush Tucker trials? What's your experience there? Did you do one, and what did you have to eat?
We didn't have as many eating ones as they do now. Like now, it's like everyone seems to do the eating ones, whereas I think only like 3 or 4 people did them my year. I had to just do the one where I had the water one, of course I did. Where it's just in a tank, and you get the crocs and eels and crabs and everything, and get all the stars. And had one where we did a night one where we had to sit on a bus I had to sit 30 minutes in this snakes bit. My gosh, that was the longest 30 minutes of my life. I thought I was literally about to die. I was just like, I hated that. That was just horrendous. But the last one, I think you're so hungry and like, we're competitive. So we don't want to let the team down. So you just give it your all. And don't get me wrong, the food that you get in camp, I, again, thought we would get like nice burgers or sausages or things like that you get in camp. No way. Like we just got given a whole possum one night. So it's just like a giant rat is a possum. And we just got that. And Key and Egan from Westlife sat there and skinned and took all the meat off the possum. And I was like, this is gross. And it was just even the food that you got given. I think one night we had like kangaroo kidneys or something. And I was like, oh God, I can't eat that. It was just, some of the stuff wasn't even nice in camp.
Do you think your performance mindset helped you at all within that environment? Do you think it gave you an edge, or was it just as competitive as you thought? Or
I think it's one of those, I didn't expect the boredom to hit as much. And I'm not like, as a distance swimmer, and with being a swimmer, I'm used to staring at a black line for 4 hours of the day on the bottom of the pool. So it was kind of like, I think that helped, because a lot of other people couldn't deal with the boredom aspects. You do just sit there a lot of the time. With the food, I mean, I think we can all tolerate a strict diet or whatever. So I was a bit fine with the food. It wasn't like, yes, I was hungry, but I wasn't like crying or kind of, it wasn't a massive issue. Whereas the boredom for a lot of people hit. Whereas I'm like, yep, my swimming's come in handy here. I'm used to it. Fine, this is fine. And I just
did anybody struggle with the eating at all? Anybody that you were with?
Oh gosh, yeah, a lot of the people were just like, it was mainly the beans, because the rice is fine. It's just like going to Wagamama's and getting order rice. The rice was lovely. It was fine. It was the beans. The beans were like, I don't even know what type of beans they were, but they were like dry. It was like eating plain crackers. Like your mouth is just, they're horrible. It's not like baked beans or nice beans or chickpeas or anything like that. It's like they were just so hard to chew and swallow, and it was just the beans were really difficult. And there was loads of people that was just like, I'm not eating them, and you were just like, you kind of have to eat them, otherwise you're literally surviving off no calories. Like you have to, you just have to get on with it. But yeah, a lot of people really struggle with the food, and I think the food causes the most arguments, because everyone then tries it when you're eating, and it's not fair then when you div it. I think food just causes the most arguments and stress in camp, definitely.
What did you like take away from like the experience? Like, did you learn anything about yourself, or that you kind of use like going forward now?
I think loads of different things. I mean, you take for granted just running water every day, and kind of like, it was so weird when we came out. Like we were only there 3 weeks, but being in a room that had a roof really freaked us all out. We all kind of had this thing where we couldn't sleep for like 3 days, because all of us were getting used to being in a room and the floor being flat, and think just simple things.
Yeah.
So I think things like that. But for me personally, it was the first time I'd ever been with what I class as famous celebby people. I've never been around that environment before. We're just being around your teammates or whatever else. And it was the first time I'd openly talked to other people that had been through what I had been through, with whether it was trolls, whether it was body image, whether it was a nasty article written about me in a paper, kind of that side of life. And that it's really hard sometimes to talk to your mates about, because they don't know that situation if they've never been in the public eye or had any of that experience. So it was the first time talking to people that have been through similar stuff. And I found that really therapeutic, just having a conversation with somebody that knew exactly what I was talking about and could relate. And even though they didn't say anything groundbreaking, I think just somebody that can relate to you in your situation just makes you instantly feel a bit better, and you naturally just feel better from having that chat with them. So that was definitely an eye-opener for me, because I'd never even met another celeb or famous person. So to be in that environment with them for 3 weeks and talking to them about their past experiences, and I think we all can openly say, you're probably the same with football. You're in your little bubble. I've been in my swimming bubble. You've been in your football. You're in your athletic. And I think we all just get used to your own bubble, and you sometimes forget real life is outside. So just listening to other people's stories and their backgrounds and taking bits of advice from them, I just was like, I literally felt like a kid at Christmas every day, because I was like, what can I learn today? And who can I today? And like, it was just like amazing, just kind of being in that environment, listening to so many people that had done incredible things that I was just so in awe of, that I was just like, and I was a little bit starstruck because I was a Westlife fan growing up. So like, Westlife were good. Don't shake your head at me.
Terrible.
No way. They're amazing. I'm with you.
Westlife. Don't knock Westlife.
I think definitely having, like you said, like different conversations with different people from different backgrounds, walks of life. I think it definitely like broadens your horizon. Like it blows your mind sometimes, because I find it when, like you say, when I've come out like my football bubble, just chatting and having those conversations, which I've done, via Zoom during lockdown, has really like opened my mind and made me think about different like aspects or avenues. And I think that's really exciting to have those conversations.
Yeah, and that's what you learn the most as well. I think you can learn so much just from listening to somebody talk, and I think that's what's been so brilliant for me with that experience, but also since then, and even during lockdown. I'm a bit the same as you, listening to things. We've had so much more time, haven't we, during lockdown? Yeah. Kind of like we've seen a lot more stuff of people just being on Zooms and listening to them and podcasts and whatever else, and I think that it's really made people a lot more aware and socially aware as well, which I think is only a bonus.
100%. And I think, you're such kind of a massive kind of female role model, and like what do you think, you can kind of tell the kind of young generation, how important do you think having a female role model is to those growing up, those female athletes, and like who inspired you growing up?
I think having female role models in sport is hugely important, because I look around at sports brands and they're using celebs in their campaigns, which is, I understand why, but I'm like, they haven't got somebody that, a lot of them, for me, London 2012 was brilliant, because Jess Ennis, Vicky Pendleton were all on these magazines and everywhere. And I think that has died down a little bit. I think it's more diverse now that they are a bit more spread out, but I do see sports companies or brands using celebs over an athlete, and I just think, why? Because we need those role models. And I think about it just with like my daughter, and I just think my daughter constantly sees on TV football, but it's always male football, because that's what's on my telly because of my dad and my boyfriend and whatever else. And I'm kind of like, I feel like it's really important for that younger generation to know women are in sport. And that's why, like, whenever the Olympics are on or Worlds are on or any athletics, I'll turn it on so she's aware. So it isn't just that, because I think if you don't look up to that and don't ever see it, in her head now, she's like, Mummy, football's boring. It's not at all. And it's not. I think it's just because for her, she just sees that her granddaddy's watching it all the time, and it's just that. So she's like, it's for boys, is what she always says. I'm like, why is it for boys, Summer? She's like, because boys play it and boys watch it. And I'm like, well, that's not true. It's just not.
Yeah, like the visibility aspect.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. And I think especially, like, I don't know about you guys growing up, I never had an athlete come into my school and show me any sort of trophy or medal or whatever, certainly let alone a women athlete. So now I love going into schools, because like they all associate, whenever I talk about Olympics, they all go Usain Bolt and Mo Farah and all that sort of stuff. But I'm like, Jess Ennis, and I'm like, I want to push the girls a lot more because I want people to know it is possible. I don't just want girls to go, well, we're not part of sport and we're not part of that, because it is possible to be that. And I think you said it for yourself, the women's side of football, cricket, netball, I think they are growing so much more and they are visible, that I'm just really aware of that. Whenever there's anything on around us, even locally, like we take my daughter, because I'm like, I just want her to see it. She's part of tennis as well as swimming as other things, because I just want her to see that visibility. And hey, if she doesn't get into sport, she doesn't get into sport, but at least I'm setting her up on a lifestyle path then. My thing is, if she's not going to be competitive, which she's probably not, well, then at least she's then healthy and active, and she knows that is what normal women look like. That is what you look like if you go to the gym. Like for the first time in lockdown, she's properly seen me exercise, because normally she goes to school and then I go to the gym. Yet this is the first opportunity she's seen me exercise, and she's like, "Mummy, I can do it." And now she can do burpees and squats and all that sort of stuff. Don't get me wrong, I'm not making her lift weights at 5.
Yeah,
training her that
TikTok. You've been making her do TikTok videos. I've seen them.
Yeah, she absolutely loved it. And she's like, and if I get my gym gear on, she goes, "Mummy, are you doing exercise?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Can I do it with you?" And I'm like, "Yes."
That's
And
awesome.
that's what we need to give a lot of the women as well, because I think for boys it's a lot easier, because at school, your lunch break, they instantly go play football. And I think boys, it's a lot more natural, whereas the girls tend to just sit there. So I want to give the younger generation that inspiration, that, no, get up, let's play football. You can play with the boys. Don't let them intimidate you. Come on.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head there about the visibility is key to the success of sport and women's sport. And obviously with some of the platforms that you've been on with, like I'm a Celebrity, The Chase and MasterChef, Question of Sport, 8 out of 10 Cats, you can continue to talk about that. And I think sometimes within our sports, it's very seasonal, maybe, that you'll have every 4 years, you'd have a Olympic Games, Paralympic Games or Commonwealth Games, etc., World Cups every so many years. Well, I think it's really important to have that platform to like showcase your sport and also talk about how passionate you are. We in athletics have had a new CEO, Joe Coates, actually come into position, and I think seeing is believing as well, regarding aspiring not just to play or participate, but also be in those top jobs like a CEO of the sport. Is that something that you'd ever look towards doing, being a performance director, head coach, or a CEO of a national governing body?
Definitely not of a national governing body. Christ, no. I've seen how they run. I'm like, no. No. I think it's one of those that they tend to be not trying to be like, they tend to be old, because they're not old at all, but I think that tends to come a little bit later on in people's career. I think it's that you've got to go out there and get that other experience first. For me, my biggest passion is learn to swim, because I want to change the perception in this country that swimming is just a sport. For me, swimming is the life skill. I don't want people to see it as a sport. Sport is secondary to this. This is a life skill. I mean, I've seen just in the news recently, just during lockdown, the heat waves, the amount of drownings that are in this country. And I'm just like, we've got to change the mentality that it is a life skill. You go to Australia, everyone can swim. You go to America and it's like, there's pools. I understand the facilities are a lot better, but here it's just that we just see that as a sport. And I think we've got to change that mentality, because like we have over 1 million kids. It's 51% of kids leave primary school unable to swim. And that for me is absolutely shocking when we live on an island, that I'm just like, from a safety perspective, like my parents didn't get me into swimming thinking I'd go to the Olympics. They just wanted to know that on holiday I was safe and that they let me go in the swimming pool and that I was going to be all right. And I think that that's what I want to do first. That is my passion rather than elite sport, is changing that.
And with your Learn to Swim program, are you also looking at some of those areas that are obviously really struggle with the swimming community and actually getting into swim, those BME communities, disability communities? Are they areas that you're working tirelessly to get involved in swimming for the future?
Well, that is what our group does. Our whole Learn to Swim group, we're in across our group. We're a number of different businesses in our group. And in our group, we tackle schools, We tackle, they build pools, so they have done loads of work on it. So they look in the country, where isn't there a pool? Where is the demand there that there isn't a pool for 10 miles, that they just don't have the option, and they go and build pools there. We're in gym facilities that have disability and access, that they have the chairlifts to get in and out the pool as well, and they have those things there. And I think it's hitting communities, a lot of Asian communities, Muslim communities, that where it's girl-only sessions, we've got to tackle that. Or what you wear in the pool. A lot of pools now have changed the criteria that you don't have to just wear a costume. If you need or want to cover up, you can fully access the swimming pool now, and they've changed the rules and regulations on what you even have to wear in the pool, which wasn't there before. And I think that's huge. If you want to go, I think that's massively important, that you should feel comfortable and you shouldn't have to compromise on any of your own beliefs just to go swimming. So I think breaking down those barriers, I think, is really, really important. And obviously, it's not going to happen overnight. There is still certainly a lot of areas across the country that can do a lot better and we can target. But we're only a small company, so hopefully over the next 10 years, that's definitely what we can grow into a lot more. But that is what we try to do now as a group, is make sure that we're covering all our bases with those different elements.
In terms of what you just said about what you want to achieve with kids learning to swim by the time they kind of get or leave primary school, like how would you like to be remembered? Like what do you want your legacy to be?
Big question.
I do, but I just want to be that girl that impacted swimming. And I know that sounds really brief and really simple, but in whatever capacity. And I think it's just one of those that I don't just want to be remembered for, oh yeah, that girl won a couple of Olympic medals or got a world record. And I think that's what my passion now is, that I've changed, hopefully, some of the statistics in this country with swimming, that I've kind of just promoted swimming. I've lived and breathed the sport, and I've impacted that, whether I'm going in to do a school visit and showing kids an Olympic medal and just giving them a bit of hope, or whatever it is, or whether it's the case of my learn to swim and I've saved someone's life that's got into trouble. I mean, we read so many amazing stories, so many of our customers emailing going, oh my gosh, well, my son had this experience this weekend, and because he's been to your lessons, it saved his life. And they make my absolute day.
Amazing, powerful, yeah.
They're so powerful. So many people say to me now, do you not miss sport? How do you find that thing that replicates that adrenaline? I'm like, you just go and see some of these programs where you're affecting the kids, and you've seen this little kid absolutely terrified to get in water, and then he 1 week jumps in. That'll make you smile and make you feel absolutely amazing that it's just happened. And I think that's what it is to me. I just want to change swimming for the better. I want more people to see it as a live sport. I want to change the statistics, that we're not having the same amount of drownings that we do in this country. I don't want that to be the situation anymore. I want it to be that, right, we've swum and yeah, we can save our life now, and that we're going to use it. And there's so many now as well. When I think about other sports, so many people are getting into triathlons and doing that later on. They've stopped swimming all their teenage years. They learned when they were little, stopped, and then they've got into their 20s and gone, oh, I want to do a triathlon, or I want to do this. And I'm like, see, swimming did
It's amazing hearing just how passionate you are about swimming. I know there's so many probably athletes that have competed at the highest level in their sport, but then kind of go, I don't want to have any more involvement in it a little bit. Do you know what I mean? But the passion you show for swimming and what you want to achieve for kids and the life skill that they have is incredible. So yeah, hopefully we can achieve that. Well, you can achieve that, hopefully. Now we've got Mark Foster coming on the podcast soon. And we want to hear if you have any funny stories about him. But before you do answer, we have a story that involves you both. Can you talk to us about the time Mark pretended to tattoo your face on his chest?
There were so many rumours. That story was in video. And there was so many rumours in the press because I put my hand on Mark's leg. And that all came about because Mark doesn't like listening to talk back and having the headphones in when you're doing the presenting. So Mark was in his own world, and then we were coming back on telly. So I just pinch his leg going, Mark, we're back on like this. The camera obviously caught me squeezing his leg. Then there was all these rumours that me and Mark were together because I squeezed his leg. Like, it was like so cringe. So then we just totally played on it. We were just like, right, we've got to do something. And I didn't know at all. And then one session, he cut my face out and stuck it. And I didn't think, I was like, where's Mark gone? Like, I was literally that, and I didn't know anything. Him and Helen Skelton arranged it. And then all of a sudden, he popped out this, like, leaf, and I was in hysterics. Why would you do that? Oh, absolutely hilarious. But one of our stories that I was going to tell about Mark is when we were doing the coverage, and we were in studio. And lucky you're over Zoom, because Mark sometimes spits when he talks. And he will openly tell you this. And we were sat next to each other, and he spat on me as we were live. By accident, this spit just kind of, you see it coming.
Yeah.
And it came towards me. At first, I thought it was a fly. So we were live on it, and I was just like this. I was like, I realised it was his spit, and I could not keep it together. I was crying with laughter. They had to just like go off and go on to something else, because I was literally like, "You just spat on me." Literally came flying. And someone on Twitter, as they geniusly do, put it on the clip. They rewound the telly and put it on the clip. And then it was going around social media for ages, Mark Foster spitting on me, because it was just absolutely hilarious. And my reaction was just like, oh.
So maybe when we've got Mark on, we can have like face masks on Ellen. Then.
Yeah, shall we?
Yeah. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. Make you a star. We've had so much fun, and I hope you've actually learned something about myself and Ellen, and we just really appreciate your time. But at the end of every podcast, we actually do like 10 questions. It's just quick fire ones, and they are quite random.
Oh God.
They are very random.
They are quite random. Yeah. So we're starting.
It was him.
First, it was all me. Yeah.
I just said, yeah, we'll go with them. We'll go with them.
So first thing that comes into your head then, nicely to start with.
Are you ready? Clear your mind. Clear your mind.
Yeah. Number 1.
Track or ball?
Track.
Hey. So what's your greatest accomplishment in life so far?
Can you say your child? Is that an accomplishment?
Yeah, of course it is.
Okay, my child then.
we actually said you'd say that as well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm never sure whether your child is an accomplishment, but yeah,
Probably
I think
is.
so. I think it's sweet. Okay. Do you believe in ghosts?
No.
No.
I believe in something, but not ghosts.
Okay.
Something as in.
Well, like, I just believe that maybe like some little things are superficial, but I don't believe in like a Casper the Friendly Ghost. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, what I'm sure that is.
What's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
Don't think I have. I think I'm very boring. I don't think I've ever taken a big enough risk. Maybe that's to come.
That's the future.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you sing?
No.
That's a good answer. That. But karaoke. What would be your go-to song?
I do one that has just backing vocals. Honestly, the amount of people that comment on how horrendous my voice is whenever we're in the car, they're like, "Oh God, I'm kind of like known amongst my friends for having this terrible voice," and I'm like, "I don't get," and I never know the word. Is it just me that never know the words? I'm like,
just
I just make them up. I make them up.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah,
it's not hurting anymore.
Have you ever been on hands free and then you've got a call and you've continued to sing to the person you actually? Have you ever continued?
No, but clearly you have.
No, I was just thinking you must have.
I do it all the time. Mate. When are you the happiest? So when are you the happiest?
When I'm with my family.
The silliest thing you've ever got upset about?
somebody calling me a dolphin or a whale on Twitter.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh, hopefully the CEO of my own company, and that we're going to have over 20,000 kids learning to swim with us every week, and hopefully I'll have a couple more babies myself.
Oh, that's a good answer. That's a very good answer. How would your friends describe you?
Honest or opinionated, one of the two. Chatty. Don't know what. Love sweets and gin.
That's a good, yeah.
You say that. Yeah, chatty, bubbly. I'm definitely honest. Very direct. I'm very black and white. Very black and white. And
last but not least, what's your greatest fear?
Snakes.
I was going to say snakes. It's got to be, isn't it?
Oh. And the obvious one of death. I mean, everyone's fear is death, right? That's everyone. Everyone's got that in there, but definitely snakes.
So no snakes for Christmas then?
Oh God, no. People that have pet snakes, I don't get. I'm
my brother had one actually.
Oh no.
And it actually escaped out of its glass container and was just going along the radiator. No.
So
just think of that thought for the rest of the day.
I couldn't step foot in someone's house if I knew they had a snake. No.
Well, thanks, Becky. No, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And thank you for being so honest as well. We really appreciate it.
Awesome, you're a star. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
So what a great character Rebecca is. It was so nice to hear from an athlete. And for me personally, I think I said within the podcast at the start of the podcast that I'm really excited to hear about her personality, what she's like, because, I've seen her on I'm a Celebrity, winning incredible medals. So I was like, yes, she's such a lovely person. Yes.
And she's actually a real person as well. And
yeah, true.
I think sometimes when you see these athletes on the podium with that medal around the neck, you don't actually know how approachable these people are, and she's very open to those conversations. And I find that from that podcast today, I've learned a lot. And I've not spoke to you about obviously what it's like being a woman and having those menstrual issues where you're having to compete, and it's the time of the month and how that affects your performance. And that's made me think about when I go into that high level coaching environment and I've got athletes that I have to manage, how she's given me some real pointers that I can take away. And that's the important thing that we want from this podcast, that the viewers as well as ourselves, we're learning all the time from this.
100%. I think it's about being open and honest, especially for her as a woman. She wants to be open and honest and explain, especially to young people coming through, that it's okay if you have a period or you're on your menstrual cycle, you can still perform at the highest level. It's just about having those conversations and being open and honest about it. And for me personally, obviously I know a lot about the menstrual cycle, but for me, my takeaway was the trolling, the abuse, and just how open she was talking about that, because it was phenomenal how much, abuse she was getting online, and the fact that she really opened up to us. And I think the people listening will be really like, wow, she is so she wants people to know about what happened and how she's kind of bounced back. She doesn't let any of that phase her. Do you know what I mean? She moves straight on. She's really positive, a positive mindset, which is an amazing thing to have as well.
And also that platform that you get as an athlete can be very empowering, but also can make you very vulnerable. Like she talked openly about how she felt standing there in a swimming costume and then being called a whale and things and disgusting things like that. As an athlete that's also got a platform to enrich other people's life, sometimes you do feel vulnerable. And I know Rebecca openly talked about that and what constitutes trolling. For me, anything that's negative, anything that goes above and beyond that conversation where you're trying to find out knowledge, as soon as it gets personal, that's when, for me, trolling is out of control. And I don't know about what kind of trolling you've had in the past. For myself, it's been more around lack of knowledge and understanding of disability sport has been the main area.
I think for mine, it's been like, you know, performance wise, do you know what I mean? Like how you're performing on the pitch. And for me, it's always challenging. I think we did speak about this in the podcast. It's how it affects your family, which really does hurt. And that's the thing that is challenging, because you don't want your family to see those things that are being said. And for me, I just don't look at it anymore. You know what I mean? It's just
no.
Well, obviously I go on social media, but you know, I don't go searching for those negative comments. I'm just like, no, that, you know what I mean? I'm focusing on me.
And what kind of thing would you had before? What? Just,
well, not a very good player, but in probably worse words than that, or not performing well, or such like, really. And I think it can really get you down. It can really affect your confidence, like completely knock your confidence. And especially for a footballer that wants to go out and perform and play well and wants the team to do well, having like a knock-on effect on you know, looking at social media can really be quite like hurtful. And I'm sure so many people do get that type of abuse. You know, mine's definitely not what any realms of what kind of Rebecca's probably got or you've got, but you know, even the slightest small ones can be really hard to get over.
Yeah, and also then you can take those into performance, and it can be it can hinder your performance. I've always looked at that social media as a positive and a negative, and myself and you obviously have come into the social media world quite late in compared with a lot of our athletes, and those that have had it in their lives from day one, I think, are the ones that have really struggled, because they're now having to manage not only the current social media account, but obviously what they posted maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I know from obviously talking to Becky, and she was very adamant that her social media was positive because you could get those messages out, but also she saw the negative side, especially around relationships and also sport. And I know myself and you are very private with our private life, and that for me would be a real struggle. Yeah,
100%. And it's, once it's out there, it's hard to take that type of thing back as well.
Yeah, that door opens, it's hard to close it, right?
100%.
So anybody that's watching the podcast today, I'm sure you'll have lots of takeaways from what Becky and myself and Ellen have said. But I think it's always about being smart with social media, and don't accept trolling. And if there's anything that you don't agree with, report them, definitely.
Definitely. And no, we really appreciate everyone listening to our podcast. We're really excited for our next guest coming up. And make sure you follow us on @TrackandBallPod on Twitter, Instagram, and also Facebook. We love to hear from you. But yeah, thanks again for listening, and we can't wait for next week.
Cross comes in. White with the header. 1-0 England.
And here comes Whitehead. It's gold for Great Britain.